In this section, guys, we're going to be looking at the zeros of polynomials. If you remember how to find the zeros of a quadratic by factoring, that's that diamond method, then that's where you set it equal to 0 and do the opposites and all that stuff, then you're going to be fine. Just now we're dealing with higher powers instead of x squared. So let's take a look at what's going to happen. This first example, this is an easy example, about as easy as it's going to get. So what I'm going to notice is there is a common number I can factor out first. And let's start with the x. That's going to reduce us to an x squared if we can factor out an x. And notice the last term has an x, so I'm going to bring the x out. What else do they all have in common? Well, guess what? They all have a 3 in common. So I'm going to go ahead and factor out that 3x squared, or not 3x squared, just 3x, to get x squared minus x minus 6. So now what we want to do is we're going to take a look at right here, the x squared minus x minus 6. We have a quadratic. It's not just like the old times. What multiplies a negative 6 and adds a negative 1 would be negative 3 and 2. So this will factor to x minus 3, x minus 2. So our polynomial, p of x, is equivalent to 3x times x minus 3 and x, not minus 2, x plus 2, my bad. And so we want to know when is this equal to 0. We want to find the 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that p of x and I'm going to set it equal to 0. So what's going to make this equal to 0? Well, the obvious choices are 3 and negative 2. If you guys remember, 3 minus 3 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. You know, think about that. If you plug a 3 into all our x's, we would have 9 times 0 times 5, which is just 0. So 3 is one of the zeros. What's another one? Negative 2. Because if you plug a negative 2 in here, you get 0 times negative 5 times negative 6. Point is, this was 0 back here times everything else is just 0. And then our last 0, well, what would go into this x? Don't forget about that. So if you have an x just like that, then that's going to give you 0. So don't forget that 0. That came from the x. So if you end up with an x in the front, then your answer is, one of your zeros is just going to be 0. Because think about that. 0 times everything else would just be 0.